Think Alberta's housing market is solid? Think again. Behind the oil patch recovery and gleaming new subdivisions, 10 cities are heading straight for a price crash in 2025. Insurance costs have doubled, inventory is exploding, and even oil workers are getting priced out. Your dream home could become a financial nightmare faster than you imagine. Red Deer is already flashing warning signs. Red Deer. Red Deer used to be the poster child for Alberta's housing boom. This central Alberta hub, perfectly positioned between Calgary and Edmonton, seemed unstoppable just 2 years ago. But in 2025, Red Deer is learning what happens when growth gets too hot too fast. The numbers tell a brutal story. Housing inventory has exploded from just 450 listings in early 2023 to over 1,200 active listings today. That's nearly a 300% increase in 18 months. Homes that used to disappear in weeks are now sitting for months, watching their asking prices slowly deflate. What's driving this dramatic shift? Start with the oil sector downturn that's hitting Red Deer's economy hard. The city's unemployment rate jumped to 6.8%, up from 4.1% just a year ago. When energy companies slash budgets, Red Deer feels it first. Those high-paying pipeline and drilling jobs that fueled the housing boom are disappearing faster than snow in Chinook winds. Then there's the overbuilding problem. Developers went wild in neighborhoods like Vanier Woods and Riverside Meadows, convinced demand would stay red-hot forever. But they miscalculated badly. New subdivision phases are launching to crickets, with spec homes sitting empty and builders offering everything from upgraded appliances to landscaping packages just to move inventory. The market metrics are telling. Average days on market have jumped from 21 days in 2023 to 67 days now. That's more than triple the time it takes to sell a home. Realtors are cutting commissions, and sellers are dropping prices by $10,000 to $15,000 just to generate interest. Medicine Hat is facing similar energy sector pressures, but with an even more dramatic twist. Medicine Hat. Medicine Hat's natural gas wealth was supposed to make it recession-proof. For decades, this southeastern Alberta city rode high on abundant energy resources and cheap utilities. Local boosters called it the gas city with pride. But in 2025, that gas-powered prosperity is backfiring spectacularly. The natural gas industry downturn has gutted Medicine Hat's job market. Major employers like Methanex and Nova Chemicals have cut production shifts, eliminating over 800 jobs since 2023. When your biggest industries start shrinking, the housing market follows fast. Home prices have dropped 8% year over year, even as surrounding Alberta markets held steady or grew. Here's the kicker. Utility costs are rising while property values fall. Medicine Hat's famous cheap natural gas rates have jumped 40% as the city struggles with infrastructure maintenance and declining industrial revenues. Homeowners who once bragged about $20 heating bills now face $80 monthly costs, making homeownership less attractive just as values decline. The population exodus is accelerating the crash. Young professionals are fleeing to Calgary and Edmonton for better opportunities, leaving behind a housing market with shrinking demand. Statistics Canada data shows Medicine Hat lost nearly 2,000 residents under age 35 in 2024 alone. That's devastating for a city of only 63,000 people. Days on market have stretched to 78 days, up from 32 days just 2 years ago. Sellers are getting desperate, offering seller financing and covering closing costs just to move properties. Some neighborhoods near the industrial area are seeing homes sit empty for months. But the struggles aren't limited to smaller energy towns. Even larger urban centers are facing their own serious market pressures. Lethbridge. Lethbridge was supposed to be different. This southern Alberta city built its housing market on two pillars: a stable university population and thriving agricultural economy. Both seem recession-proof compared to volatile oil and gas markets. But in 2025, even these seemingly stable foundations are crumbling beneath the housing market. The University of Lethbridge enrollment crisis hit like a freight train. Student numbers dropped 12% in just 2 years, from 9,200 students to 8,100. That's over 1,000 fewer renters competing for housing, devastating the rental market that many property investors counted on. Vacancy rates in student-oriented areas like University Drive have jumped to 18%. Agricultural commodity volatility is hammering the regional economy that supports Lethbridge's housing demand. Wheat prices dropped 23% from their 2022 peaks, while fertilizer and fuel costs remain elevated. Local farmers are tightening budgets, delaying equipment purchases, and some are even selling land. When agriculture struggles, every business in Lethbridge feels the pinch. The mortgage stress test is revealing how stretched local buyers really are. Failed applications have increased 47% year over year as rising interest rates expose affordability gaps. First-time buyers who could barely qualify at 3% rates are completely priced out at 6.5% rates. New condo developments tell the most dramatic story. The downtown Cornerstone project launched with 120 units priced from $290,000 to $420,000. 6 months later, only 31 units have sold, and developers are offering $15,000 incentives plus free parking to move inventory. But if you think Lethbridge's correction is dramatic, wait until you see what's happening in the oil sands region, where boom-bust cycles create housing swings that make other markets look stable. Fort McMurray. Fort McMurray represents the ultimate boom-bust housing cycle, where fortunes rise and fall with oil prices faster than anywhere else in Canada. This northern Alberta powerhouse has seen housing values swing from breathtaking highs to devastating lows, more times than residents care to count. The current down cycle might be the most severe yet. Major oil sands project delays are crushing employment projections that housing demand depends on. Suncor postponed its Base Plant expansion, Imperial Oil pushed back Aspen, and several smaller projects remain indefinitely stalled. These delays translate to thousands of jobs that won't materialize, leaving the housing market without its primary buyer pool. The population exodus continues relentlessly. Fort McMurray peaked at 111,000 residents in 2019, but has shed over 8,000 people since then. Current estimates put the population at 102,000 and falling. When you lose nearly 10% of your residents, housing demand collapses accordingly. The luxury home market tells the most dramatic story. Houses worth over $700,000 haven't moved in months. Properties in neighborhoods like Abbotsford Heights and Eagle Ridge that sold for $900,000 in 2022 are now listed at $750,000 with no buyers. Inventory in the luxury segment has tripled since 2023. Insurance costs are adding insult to injury. Wildfire risk reassessments following recent blazes have pushed premiums up 60% for many homeowners. Annual insurance costs that were $3,000 now exceed $5,000, making homeownership even less attractive as property values decline. Days on market average 84 days, nearly 4 times longer than during boom periods. But Fort McMurray isn't alone in feeling resource dependency pressure. Smaller communities face even more concentrated versions of these same devastating market forces. Grande Prairie's housing crash is hitting with concentrated fury that makes larger cities' problems look manageable. This northwestern Alberta hub built its entire economy around energy extraction, and when that falters, there's nowhere to hide. The combination of mass layoffs and reckless overbuilding has created a perfect storm of oversupply just as demand evaporates. Energy sector layoffs have slashed the buyer pool by an estimated 15% since 2023. Major employers like Canadian Natural Resources and Tourmaline Oil cut operations, eliminating over 2,000 high-paying jobs that fueled housing demand. When you lose the workers earning $100,000 plus annually, the entire market foundation crumbles. The overbuilding disaster is staggering in scope. New subdivision completions are exceeding actual demand by a 3-to-1 ratio, according to local development data. Neighborhoods like Bear Creek and West Point have rows of completed homes sitting empty, with builders desperately offering upgraded packages and seller financing to move inventory. Home prices have already dropped 6% year over year, with real estate analysts predicting another 8 to 12% decline through 2025. Properties that sold for $450,000 in 2023 are now listed at $420,000 and still struggling to attract offers. The economic damage is spreading beyond energy. Retail and service sector businesses that depend on well-paid energy workers are cutting staff and hours. Restaurants, auto dealerships, and professional services are all feeling the pinch as discretionary spending disappears. It's a classic resource town death spiral where one sector's decline drags everything else down. Average time on market has stretched to 91 days, with some properties sitting unsold for 6 months or more. But here's what's really surprising. Even traditionally stable bedroom communities are showing serious cracks in their housing foundations. Airdrie. Airdrie's whole identity as Calgary's favorite bedroom community is backfiring spectacularly. For years, families flocked to this northern suburb for affordable homes and easy highway access to downtown Calgary jobs. But in 2025, that commuter lifestyle is becoming a liability rather than an asset, and the housing market is paying the price. Calgary's job market uncertainty is devastating Airdrie's core appeal. Major employers like Imperial Oil, TC Energy, and Suncor have announced layoffs and hiring freezes that directly impact Airdrie residents who depend on those downtown paychecks. When 68% of your workforce commutes to another city, employment instability there becomes your housing crisis. Rising fuel costs are making the daily commute financially painful. Gas prices averaging $1.60 per liter mean Airdrie residents spend over $400 monthly just getting to work. Add insurance, vehicle maintenance, and parking fees, and that affordable suburban lifestyle suddenly costs an extra $6,000 annually compared to living in Calgary proper. The overbuilding problem is massive in family-oriented subdivisions like Kings Heights and Cooper's Crossing. Developers launched 17 new phases since 2022, anticipating continued demand from young families. Instead, they've created fierce competition with over 2,000 active listings competing for a shrinking buyer pool. First-time buyers face brutal financing challenges. Mortgage rates above 6.5% have priced out families who could afford Airdrie homes just 2 years ago. Properties requiring $600,000 mortgages now need monthly payments exceeding $3,000, well beyond most young family budgets. Days on market have jumped to 73 days, with price reductions becoming standard. But Airdrie's suburban struggles pale compared to what's happening in regional centers, grappling with much deeper infrastructure and demographic challenges. Lloydminster. Lloydminster's unique border city status once gave it economic advantages that other prairie towns envied. Straddling Alberta and Saskatchewan, residents could shop for the best tax rates, employment opportunities, and services from both provinces. But in 2025, that border location is becoming a curse as economic troubles on both sides squeeze this oil-dependent community from every direction. Heavy oil sector challenges are eliminating the high-paying jobs that built Lloydminster's housing market. The upgrader facility reduced operations, Husky Energy scaled back drilling programs, and dozens of service companies cut staff. These weren't minimum wage positions, but six-figure salaries that supported premium housing demand. Local unemployment jumped to 8.4%, double the rate from 2022. Cross-provincial tax implications are deterring buyers who once saw border living as an advantage. New federal tax changes affecting oil workers, combined with Saskatchewan's PST increases, have created confusion and additional costs that make Lloydminster less attractive. Accountants report 23% more clients seeking advice on relocating to avoid tax complications. The aging population crisis is accelerating faster than anywhere else in rural Alberta. Statistics Canada data shows Lloydminster's median age increased by 4.2 years since 2020, as young workers leave for Calgary and Edmonton opportunities. An aging population means fewer home buyers and more sellers, creating sustained downward pressure on prices. Commercial real estate vacancy rates have jumped to 28% downtown, the highest in a decade. Empty storefronts and office spaces signal broader economic distress that's spreading to residential markets. When businesses close and jobs disappear, housing demand follows them out of town. Days on market now average 86 days, with sellers offering seller financing and cash incentives. But while prairie towns struggle with resource dependency, mountain communities face entirely different pressures from tourism volatility and lifestyle market corrections. Canmore. Canmore's mountain paradise lifestyle market is crashing back to earth as reality sets in. This Bow Valley gem became the poster child for pandemic-era lifestyle purchases, where wealthy buyers snapped up vacation properties and luxury homes with breathtaking mountain views. But in 2025, those same buyers are discovering that paradise comes with some very expensive problems. New Airbnb regulations have gutted investment property appeal virtually overnight. The town of Canmore's short-term rental restrictions, implemented in January 2025, limit new licenses and impose strict occupancy rules. Properties that investors bought specifically for Airbnb income are now stuck in a shrinking rental market. Investment returns that promised 12% annually have dropped to 4% or less. The luxury market has stalled completely as economic uncertainty grows. Homes priced above $1.5 million haven't moved in months. Properties in prestigious areas like Silvertip and Three Sisters that sold for $2.8 million in 2023 are now listed at $2.3 million with no serious buyers. When stock portfolios shrink and interest rates climb, discretionary luxury purchases disappear first. Seasonal employment instability is crushing the local buyer pool that once supported workforce housing. Ski resort layoffs, restaurant closures, and reduced tourism services have eliminated hundreds of jobs that supported year-round residents. Local workers who could afford starter homes at $500,000 are now priced out completely. Environmental restrictions are limiting new development just as demand softens anyway. Wildlife corridor protections and watershed concerns have frozen several major developments, reducing future supply. But with current inventory sitting unsold for 90-plus days, supply constraints don't matter when there are no buyers. The correction is spreading beyond lifestyle markets to affect industrial communities that once seemed immune to housing volatility. Strathcona County. Strathcona County's industrial powerhouse status is transforming into a housing market liability as automation and modernization reshape the economic landscape. This Edmonton-adjacent region built its prosperity on massive refineries and petrochemical plants that employed thousands of well-paid workers. But 2025 is bringing a harsh reality check as industrial transformation collides with housing oversupply. Refinery sector modernization is systematically reducing employment numbers through automation and efficiency improvements. Imperial Oil's Strathcona refinery eliminated 300 positions through digital upgrades, while Shell's Scotford complex cut another 200 jobs via process automation. These weren't temporary layoffs, but permanent workforce reductions that directly impact housing demand from high-income buyers. Acreage properties are sitting longer as rural lifestyle demand softens dramatically. Properties on large lots that once sold within weeks now average 112 days on market. The appeal of country living with city wages has faded as employment uncertainty grows and commuting costs rise. Acreages priced above $700,000 haven't moved in months. Property tax increases due to industrial assessment changes are hitting homeowners with unexpected bills. As industrial property values decline, residential taxpayers are picking up a larger share of municipal costs. Some homeowners face property tax increases of 15 to 20%, making ownership more expensive just as property values stagnate. Remote work is eliminating Strathcona County's location premium compared to Edmonton proper. Why pay extra for suburban industrial living when you can work from downtown Edmonton condos or trendy neighborhoods like White Avenue? The pandemic proved that many jobs don't require proximity to refineries, reducing demand for county housing. Days on market have stretched to 87 days countywide, with some properties sitting unsold for 6 months. But even these industrial struggles pale compared to what's happening in Alberta's most surprising housing crash location, Wood Buffalo. Wood Buffalo represents the most dramatic housing crash story in all of Alberta, where boom-bust cycles reach extremes that make other markets look stable. This vast northern region, centered around Fort McMurray, has experienced housing swings that would terrify investors anywhere else. But the current correction isn't just another cycle, it's a fundamental restructuring that could permanently reshape this oil sands capital. Oil sands automation is systematically eliminating the high-paying jobs that drove housing demand for decades. Major operators like Suncor and Canadian Natural Resources are deploying autonomous trucks, remote monitoring systems, and artificial intelligence that reduce workforce needs by 30 to 40%. These aren't temporary efficiency measures, but permanent technological shifts that eliminate thousands of six-figure positions. Municipal debt concerns are crippling infrastructure investment just when the region needs it most. Wood Buffalo owes over $1.8 billion, the highest per capita municipal debt in Canada. Credit rating downgrades have increased borrowing costs, forcing delays in essential services that make the region less attractive to potential residents and employers. Climate policy uncertainty is creating investor hesitation that extends far beyond environmental concerns. Federal emissions caps and carbon pricing uncertainty make long-term oil sands planning nearly impossible. When companies can't predict operating costs 5 years out, they postpone expansion projects that would create jobs and housing demand. Housing inventory from the previous boom is still flooding the market years later. Luxury homes built during 2014-2017 peaks are competing with newer construction, creating massive oversupply. Some neighborhoods have for sale signs on every third house, with properties sitting unsold for 8 months or more. Population projections have been revised downward by 15,000 people through 2030, fundamentally altering long-term housing demand calculations. When your market depends on continuous population growth and that growth disappears, the correction becomes permanent rather than cyclical. Rather